Xian Sina. Xian is our co-president in Urgency. And I think that we all have a lot to learn from the way the Chinese CSA network reacted, because they were obviously the first to be hard hit in China. And their reactions, I think, were very quick and very collective. So Xian, maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you reacted, what happened, and where you're at now, and also if you have managed to have any support from any different level of government in what you have been doing. Over to you, Xian, and thank you very much for being here so late in your night.
大家好，今天我想给大家
Today, my presentation will introduce. First, I would like to thank Judith, and then I will introduce my farms and how China CSA network operates under the pandemic, and how we react to the challenge. I will share my PowerPoint to give you more detailed information. Under the pandemic, our farms in the past will apply the CSA delivery system because the crops are very diverse on different seasons, and our CSA farms, we also have some chicken, ducks, goat, and other animals, just like the picture. And besides that, we've also grown.
Nous cultivons des légumes et nous organisons des camps d'été, des programmes de formation.
Para os agricultores. Aprender.
现在呢，我们这个 CSA 联盟呢
，our CSA
有1500多。
Aujourd'hui, notre réseau CSA a commencé à fleurir en Chine avec plus de 500 fermes en Chine. Depuis 2020, qui était le début de la pandémie, notre réseau CSA a commencé à promouvoir les coopératives au niveau provincial. Les coopératives. Nous avons aussi enregistré notre système de garantie SPG au niveau local. Et je peux toujours me souvenir, lorsque la pandémie a commencé en Chine, c'était le nouvel an chinois, le nouvel an lunaire, les premiers 5 jours du nouvel an. Alors qu'on était durant notre pause de printemps, durant 5 jours, les fermes avaient peu d'employés, peu de personnel, alors que tout le monde rentrait auprès de leur famille. Et soudainement, nous avons eu une demande qui a explosé. Alors qu'en même temps, on n'était pas en mesure de sortir et de répondre à cette demande. Lorsque le deuxième pic de la pandémie a eu lieu en juin 2020. Pékin était l'épicentre de la pandémie et tout le marché en Pékin constitue plus de 70% de la production de la ville. Le deuxième jour de la pandémie, de ce pic, les marchés ont été fermés et nous avons fait face à une période plutôt courte de pénurie alimentaire. Les produits dans les supermarchés se sont terminés très vite et la demande a augmenté auprès des fermes. Ici, vous voyez nos végétaux et les packaging. En même temps, il y a eu une tempête de neige et nous avons eu besoin de personnel pour nous aider à pouvoir ouvrir les accès enneigés. Durant cette période, notre personnel, moi-même y compris, était 4 personnes. Et nous avons travaillé sans relâche durant un mois en entier pour pouvoir répondre aux demandes. Alors que la demande avait doublé. Par chance, nous avions beaucoup de végétaux stockés pour l'hiver. Nous pouvons les cueillir et les délivrer. Pour pouvoir répondre à cette demande en augmentation, durant la pandémie, nous avons aussi remarqué que la relation entre les agriculteurs et les consommateurs s'est renforcée. Cette photo, ce sont les membres qui nous envoient des photos pour nous remercier de leur avoir envoyé ces légumes à temps. Et pour nous remercier de leur envoyer des végétaux tellement sains. Donc, si on regarde les problèmes d'offres et de demande durant la pandémie, il y a beaucoup de déséquilibre. Par exemple, les réseaux locaux sont sous-alimentés. Nos travailleurs, notre main-d'œuvre n'ont pas pu revenir à Pékin pour travailler à cause du confinement, de la quarantaine. Donc, les fermes ont dû faire face à tellement de défis. Quelques fermes dépendent beaucoup de l'industrie. Par exemple, les fraises, la récolte des fraises, ce genre d'activité a besoin dépend des consommateurs et dépend aussi du travail sur le site, sur le terrain. Et donc, durant la pandémie, il y a eu un gaspillage des fraises qui n'ont pas pu être cueillies. notamment dans les provinces centrales qui produisent beaucoup de fruits. Donc, au début de la pandémie, notre système a été brisé et les producteurs agricoles n'ont pas pu vendre leurs produits. Donc, alors que les fermes locales ont pu vendre mieux leurs produits. Nous avons aussi observé une réduction des ventes. Durant la pandémie, nous avons aussi fait des donations à nos villages locaux qui ont bénéficié à plus de 100 familles au niveau local. Et avec cela, nous avons pu aider la population à s'alimenter de manière saine. Nous avons notamment fait des donations au district de Chouyi, notamment à un centre de prévention de la pandémie, où des soignants ne pouvaient pas rentrer chez eux pour qu'ils puissent avoir accès à une alimentation saine. Il y a eu aussi une réduction des ventes de 30%. Par contre, il y a eu une augmentation aussi des ventes. Vous voyez sur ce graphique, comme vous voyez sur ce graphique, 20 fermes ont pu augmenter leurs ventes et 10 ont vu leurs ventes augmenter de 50%. Durant la pandémie, différentes fermes ont pris différentes mesures. Quelques-unes se sont concentrées sur les ventes en ligne, d'autres sur les ventes hors ligne, et quelques-unes ont coopéré avec d'autres fermes pour partager leur savoir-faire et leur réseau. Et donc, si on peut résumer la situation, il y a plusieurs fermes qui ont partagé leur savoir-faire durant la pandémie. Et finalement, j'aimerais dire que de la même manière que ma ferme a partagé son savoir-faire, nous avons aussi travaillé sur un programme comme vous pouvez voir, cette photo de notre sol qui ressemble à une éponge. Nous parlons souvent de résilience. C'est grâce à la solidarité et l'unité de notre sol qu'on peut comparer à notre société qui devrait aussi être capable de co-créer et d'être résiliente. Et ceci est la résilience durant la pandémie. Par exemple, lorsqu'il y a besoin Par exemple, lorsqu'on a dû faire face à des coûts supplémentaires, par exemple, la livraison, les coûts de livraison. Donc, tout cela fait partie de la résilience des systèmes alimentaires qui nous a permis de faire face à ces défis. Merci beaucoup. Merci, Xian, pour tout cela. C'était très intéressant, très inspirant. Et c'était une description très, très complète.
And Spain was also hit very, very hard by the pandemic at one stage. What can you tell us about?
Notre pays a aussi beaucoup souffert pendant la pandémie. Donc, que pourriez-vous nous dire comment le CSA a réagi et comment votre réseau et vous avez pu avancer? Et je vous pose la même question. Est-ce que le gouvernement et les autorités vous ont soutenu à un moment ou un autre? Isa, en Espagne, comment ça s'est passé? Merci beaucoup. Bon après-midi, bonjour, bonsoir. C'est un plaisir de voir beaucoup d'entre vous. C'est dommage de ne pas se voir de plus près. C'était très intéressant d'écouter Xian et toute leur expérience. Je voudrais aussi souligner, avant de vous expliquer notre expérience,
la propia experiencia de URGENCI, porque como red...
About URGENCI itself. So as a network, when this whole thing began at the beginning, we started introducing ourselves to each other and telling each other about what's happening. And so it's about the local level, but it's also about being connected in an international network like this. That's very important, just basically so that we can feel accompanied, so that we can feel support from others. And I think that also we should, it's about showing appreciation for each other and learning about each other. We're very far from each other, but when possible, we come together and we support each other. So if I start with the challenges and the current situation, well, as groups, well, the first main challenge was public policy and the barriers in public policy. They're very far from supporting us with public policy, and with the measures of the government, the first thing they did was to close down the local marketplaces, and they tried to maintain long supply chains of food. They tried to keep the migrant labor force working, and even women, day workers, were forced to continue. They were not allowed back to their countries. And so what is essential? Well, public policy is essential, and we decided, public policy decided to strengthen long supply chains, closing down local markets, closing down even vegetable gardens for self-consumption, saying that these were not safe enough, using that as an excuse, and providing support for the larger supermarkets. And then as for the CSA groups, well, initially, it wasn't so difficult because they were not in a space, they were outdoors, many of them, and in the open air, but then some were asked for certificates. As soon as people went out to the streets, they were asked to provide a certificate to prove that they are professional. And either you're a producer or a professional or an employee or...
employé.
Entonces yo creo que el primer reto que nos enfrentamos fue este, o sea,
that was the first main challenge that we had. So public policy itself placed limits upon us. It meant that they didn't help our activities, they rather provided support for others. That was the first challenge then. And then another challenge as groups of agriculture supported by communities, CSA, well, we saw how the queues of the hungry were increasing. So people with very few resources who do not have access to dignified quality food. In the first few months, above all when we were put into lockdown, hunger became much more visible, and this is hunger dating back to 2010 and 2011 in its origins, and now it became visible all of a sudden, and many families were supported by their grandmothers. The grandmother would care for the young children at home, and they would prepare food for the whole week, but often the grandmother lived in the same neighborhood or even in the same city, and she would travel with the food to bring it to the families. And this was providing basic food for the families. And so lots of factors came together, a combination of lots of different factors that we needed to respond to. And just so that I don't forget this at the end, I'll say it now. So one of the main lessons learned for us is something that we've been saying for a long time, at least I've been saying it at many urgency meetings, is that often we believe that our groups are groups that sell baskets of vegetables, but no, it's not that. It's not necessarily that. It's what is the link that brings us together. It's not just the logistical form that you use. It could be a basket, it could be a marketplace, it could be a community garden or whatever. But what defines us, or at least what defines me, has always been feeling in a community, wanting to support the other members of the community, mutual support. And this is what meant that we were able to put up resistance and react. So there were small markets of small producers that were closed down. And then quickly they reconverted and it became a basket group. But the relationship between them was the same one, regardless of whether it was a market or a basket. It was the relationship that's there. If that relationship hadn't existed, then it wouldn't have worked. And I think that is what is most important here. And even having all of public policy against us, and the fact that we couldn't, there were so many things we couldn't do, we nevertheless managed to reorganize our groups. We managed to seek out networks with people with the fewest resources. We managed to bring together, incorporate people who didn't have monetary resources and linking them up within the CSA networks. So now we say that, well, we continue to speak about CSA, but in Spanish, we don't talk about community-supported agriculture, but rather food supported by the community. Community-supported food, because it's not just the non-producers who are supporting the producers, it's really, the support has gone in every direction. So we've all supported each other mutually. So it's not the community supporting production, it's not community supporting agriculture, it's all of us supporting food. And so I think it's important to raise awareness on that. And then what was done after that was that we started to reorganize ourselves. And I don't know how to say it exactly, but we looked for the little solutions, the tweaks, the cheats to find solutions and also to mobilize. So at local level, we looked for ways to re-articulate ourselves. So volunteer networks. The producers had to work a lot harder, of course, that was much worse. But then it was also about creating links among them because they were not very well articulated, and this meant that a certain articulation became necessary. They had to come together more than before. And then another thing I was going to say was that yes, we had mobilization taking place at local level, but at the national level, at the level of the Spanish state, we linked up very fiercely. So we have SOS Campesinado, so SOS farmers, and we came together to oppose the closing down of markets, agricultural markets, and we spoke about the difficulties of going to allotments or vegetable gardens. And this was a campaign which was started by a group of women, and this group of women had been articulated for a long time on the issue of agroecology. And so given the need, given the injustices that we were noticing, we decided to launch this slogan, SOS Farmers. Nobody signed it at first. Well, it was just left open for whoever wanted to share it, to send it out, and that actually worked. It was great. It worked very well. It meant that we were able to bring pressure to bear to the governments to make ourselves visible, despite them wanting us to be invisible, and many markets were opened up, and it was mainly vegetable gardens for self-consumption being opened up again, so allotments. That was very important for us. And community kitchens, and then alternative food banks and small agroecological production, linking that up with large neighborhoods. And so lots of different relationships there. And then the basket groups grew. The demand increased, and that's what appears in the urgency report. You can see there that demand increased. People got closer to their local produce. And now we can see how this is being maintained, because when pressure starts to go down, then it seems that some things lose steam. So we have to continue, keep the steam up, keep up the pressure, and keep fighting to be visible. And so I think I can leave it there. Maybe if there are questions or something, or if something wasn't understood, then I can come in again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isa. What I retain from these two first interventions is, first of all, the whole long food chain broke down, and the short food chain, local, resilient, CSA and similar food chains were resilient and managed to actually feed people. In many cases, there were home deliveries. I think that while we had a lot harder work from everybody involved, there was a lot of reactivity and very good protocols put in place that have strengthened our networks. The one thing that maybe we can think about there for another round is the problems that are caused by increased demand. Now, you don't plant and harvest.
需求不断增长。
So this is
On n'augmente pas les
No mismo dia.
Entonces es un problema. Bueno, antes de abrir estas preguntas, vamos a escucharle a Jessica Wilson de Massachusetts en Estados Unidos. Y ella es la directora ejecutiva de una organización de justicia alimentaria. Jessica, bueno, vemos el tema de la justicia alimentaria en muchos ámbitos. Se ha mencionado ya muchas veces en esta reunión. Quizás puedes contarle a las personas aquí en esta llamada cómo estaban las cosas realmente, cuáles fueron los problemas de acceso a la alimentación antes y durante COVID, y qué es lo que ustedes han logrado, han podido hacer para luchar en contra de las dificultades de la justicia alimentaria, porque tu organización alimenta a muchas personas, ¿no? Sí, es el objetivo, sí. Gracias por la introducción, Judith, y gracias a Isa y Xian por compartir sus historias. Me siento muy humilde en torno a con estas personas a mi alrededor aquí, pero me me da mucha fortaleza porque el trabajo no ha sido fácil en este periodo, como saben. Entonces es un orgullo estar aquí con la oportunidad de compartir con ustedes. Bueno, Lowell en Massachusetts es un pueblo pequeño en Massachusetts, en Estados Unidos, 110.000 personas, más 110.000 habitantes más o menos, y es una ciudad de pasaje de la migración. Entonces, más del 30% de nuestros ciudadanos no nacieron en Estados Unidos. Muchas personas de Camboya, de África Occidental, de la India, de China, son las poblaciones de migrantes más importantes en esta zona. Un gran desafío en Lowell es que tenemos que garantizar que las personas tengan los cultivos importantes para sus propias dietas locales. Solo podemos cultivar durante un periodo breve en el año. En Massachusetts tenemos, el invierno es muy duro y si no tienes espacio al interior para producir, falta espacio de producción. Antes de la pandemia, bueno, la seguridad alimentaria fue un gran problema. En Lowell, más del 20% de las personas no tienen dinero suficiente para alimentarse. Entonces, productos frescos y sanos no pueden permitírselos. Una cosa que hacemos es conectamos a las personas con distintas subvenciones disponibles, ya sea a nivel estatal o a nivel federal, y así tienen más dinero disponible para poder pagar los alimentos que necesitan. Y Cheryl está. Muy bien, hola. Y bueno, otra cosa es la capacidad de llegar al lugar donde compras los productos. Y bueno, ahora comparto una foto con ustedes para que entiendan el contexto. Antes de la pandemia teníamos estos mercados portables. Podíamos desplazarnos con este mercado. Si la gente no tiene coche, están los autobuses, pero es muy difícil. Entonces acudimos nosotros a los barrios con los alimentos. Y luego, si tienen las subvenciones o el bono del gobierno, pueden comprar nuestros alimentos con el bono directamente. Y en medio de marzo estuvimos en confinamiento y no pudimos mover el mercado portátil. No pudimos abrir el mercado de marzo hasta julio 2020 y tuvimos que crear un plan tuvimos que lidiar con las restricciones COVID y garantizar la seguridad de las personas en estos mercados. Y estábamos cultivando muchos alimentos, 18.000 kilos al año de producción de alimentos, y queríamos garantizar que los alimentos llegaban a las personas productos frescos que necesitan. Y para que ustedes entiendan, cultivamos en 3 granjas distintas. Esta es una explotación, es un lugar muy interesante, es detrás de una gran oficina, un gran edificio de oficinas. Tenemos unos hectáreas aquí y también en los techos de las casas. El primer CSA en 2020, lo que dijimos al principio es que tenemos que hacer llegar la comida a los hogares cuanto antes. Pero muchas de las personas las conocemos solo porque nos vemos en persona, no tenemos correos electrónicos, no tenemos los números de teléfono. Entonces hubo que recrear el mercado por completo en este periodo, entre marzo y julio. Y esto lo pudimos hacer de manera rápida porque teníamos muchas asociaciones con otras organizaciones que ayudan a las personas con el cuidado de los niños o de los ancianos. Y entramos en contacto con estas redes y dijimos, ustedes están en contacto con sus clientes en casa y los socios están en casa, y entonces ustedes les pueden informar que podemos entregar comida a domicilio y muchas veces eran personas que tenían subvenciones o bonos del gobierno, entonces no les costaba nada recibir esta comida. Entonces creamos un plan para estos CSA. Trabajábamos 3 días a la semana haciendo paquetes de comida y creo que eran 50 o 60 personas al principio que hacían las entregas y al final de la temporada eran más de 120 personas en el primer año. 2021 ahora ya es el segundo año del programa CSA y ahora tenemos a más de 170 personas que hacen la entrega o que acuden a nosotros y ahora estamos entrando en invierno y es bastante distinto. Son cultivos que se pueden almacenar o que se pueden reservar durante un periodo. Y bueno, tuvimos que pensar en todo el modelo de servicios. Y yo creo que este fue el enfoque más holístico para ayudar a las personas. Nos centramos en las personas que más necesidades tienen. Isa ha hablado mucho de crear redes y sí, eso ha sido sumamente importante para nosotros también. Tenemos varios grupos con los que trabajamos que nos orientan en este proceso. En primer lugar, desarrollamos una red de agricultura urbana en Massachusetts. Entonces, cualquier persona que cultivaba en una escala parecida a la nuestra, nos pusimos en contacto por correo y compartimos información una vez al mes y hablamos de los métodos, si trabajamos online, si cambiamos esto, lo otro, respetar las nuevas restricciones del Estado.
And so we are, the only nonprofit organization who does what we do in Lowell, but there are many small growers who grow a particular kind of crop for a very specific audience. And so we wanted to connect with them and make sure they were getting their product out, that we could help them by kind of aggregating or purchasing some of their produce from them and then distributing that to our customers. And we did also help a few small growers. There were some farmers markets that were closed. And so we felt very strongly that in those places where we had built a good customer base, we wanted to still be there. So we were able to work with these small growers, talk to our local board of health and permitting agencies to kind of reestablish a makeshift farmers market in these places so that people could still come and get the food that they had in the same location where they had been going for years, and not show up there one day and say, where did all the farmers go? And it was really, I think, just a kind of day by day tackling each problem that came up and trying to find a solution that helped as many people as possible. We did a lot of donations through this year too. So any kind of abundant harvest we had was funneled through our local food bank, and they aggregate lots of donated food and then distribute that to smaller food pantries throughout our region. So people that might only be open once a week for families to come through and get food. But we were able to donate about 5,000 pounds of produce to that food bank over the course of 2020. And we also, anybody who came to us and said they wanted to sign up for our CSA but couldn't pay, we added them to the rolls and made sure that they got that weekly produce. And then because we're a nonprofit organization, we are adept at grant writing and fundraising. So we were able to actually run a special campaign to fund those CSAs for folks, to make sure that the community understood there were still lots of people that were looking for food, and there was a way that they could help. I think, I heard both folks talk about like the workers and labor shortages and volunteers. And so this was something we also dealt with quite a bit. We have a very small staff that runs our farm. We have 3 full-time folks, and they really benefit every year from having hundreds of volunteers that want to work with us come and help out on the farm. We did, for a time, have to pause that volunteer program But eventually, when we were allowed to have small groups out at our farm, we were able to reinstate this. And so we went from, you know, our normal prior to 2020 was having groups, large groups come out and do a full day or a couple of hours at the farm, helping us either, you know, weed, harvest, transplant. What that turned into was we had this really dedicated small group of people who would come out once or twice a week, maybe about, you know, 25 folks, and dedicated so much time to supporting our farm team. We actually have one volunteer who I think volunteered over 100 hours in that year. And we said she was, you know, an official member of our team. But I think the folks that did come and do that with us, you know, talked about how meaningful this was for them, especially at a time where many of them were at home alone. If they were working or in school, they were only seeing their coworkers on a screen like this. And so it was an opportunity for them to connect, you know, with other humans face to face on our farm, and also know that the work that they were doing during the day was benefiting people in the community, even if they never got to meet those people. So today we have the mobility to run all of the programs that we were running prior to March of 2020, which is really fantastic. But one of the lessons that we've learned is that people really love the CSA program, and that we're able to offer some educational tools with it. So we include lots of recipes, we translate them into many different languages. We now can do in-person cooking classes with some of our CSA members and invite them to our headquarters where we have a kitchen. And so this is something that we're looking forward to doing quite a bit more of through the rest of this year and next year. Because for us, you know, food justice is not only, you know, the access to the food, but also really being able to, you know, share it, you know, understand where it comes from, grow it yourself, cook it yourself, and have that, you know, that real ability to do whatever, you know, whatever you want with your food, and feel like that you have the food that you want to eat, and have a community that supports that. And so we're really interested in building, you know, and rebuilding that community again.
Thank you so much, Jessica.
Yeah. Thank you.
We'll try and come back to you in a little while. I think that what really stood out there for me is that this is not only food sovereignty, it is also very much solidarity-based economy in the true sense of the word. And Urgency has both food sovereignty and solidarity economy as its two key pillars. So I think that, you know, it's very important. You also touched on the food sovereignty dimension of culturally appropriate food, and you touched on the aspect of really building the community connections, which is so important, as well as enabling people who have food stamps and other forms of benefit to use them to buy their food. So I'd like to ask if we can take maybe one question to have a little break here in the middle before I move on to the next speaker, who will be Joyce from Brazil. Does anybody have a first question for any of the three speakers? Incidentally, Xian has had to leave us. It's the middle of her night. And she also had to leave to feed her little baby, which is much more important than answering questions. I think she made a great contribution. So does anybody want to chime in with a question before we move on to Joyce? Asking once. Asking twice. Okay, so we'll move on to Joyce. And then after Joyce, we will have Laurence from Belgium. And we should be able to have some interaction between our speakers. So Joyce is from the Landless Peoples Movement in Brazil. which is a member of the Via Campesina, and she is the pedagogical coordinator of courses on agroecology for the MST in Sao Paulo. So Joyce, can you join us? Can you manage to speak to us? I know you had severe difficulties earlier on with no electrical current. Are you there with us now? Joyce?
Oi. Estão me ouvindo?
Over to
Oi?
you.
Sim, pode falar, Joyce. Estamos te ouvindo aqui.
Ah, tá. Obrigada, Ariel. Eu não estava entendendo direito, desculpa. Então, eu sou Joyce.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me? I'm Joyce. I live in Dara Assentment. It's from the agriculture reform. I'm a producer, and I'm also co-founder of our CSA, and we've been working together here for some years now. Our community has been, since 2018, we've been working hard with our community here for about a year and a half when we were in organizing process of the families when the pandemic hit us. And the situation changed completely in our community. But before this, just for you to give an idea, I'm also a member of the Peoples Without Land movement, when we've been fighting for the land in Brazil for some years now. So we've been living here for more than 17 years in this area. And we've been producing food in agroecological ways without agrotoxics, and doing a management of the forests. So in our community started in the beginning via the organization that we used to do delivery of basket food in the universities. And with time, it didn't work very well. There was very few baskets, so it was not worth it to go to Linz to deliver it there. So we decided to stop with this. Our co-producers also, we said, well, we cannot stop. We have to find alternative way. And they say, have you heard of CSA Brazil? I have heard about it. I participated already of talking about it, where there was a rep in the CSA there, and he had mentioned a few things about it. So I decided to talk with Wagner, so Wagner could explain to us how they worked. And that is how we did. We organized some families, and Wagner came here, explained to us how it worked. And from there onwards, we started to organize in the media, in the social media, and distributing leaflets, and we organize our community. So we started with 20 producers, and with time we increased. We had many activities, so people could find out about our production area. They would come here, have a coffee with us. It was a very good integration, and we were forming our community and our organization. And then the pandemic came and hit us. We had so many plans. We had so many plans in mind for 2020 for our community. So we had to cancel all the planning as a result, all the visits, all the activities. So the first instance when the pandemic arrived, it was a shock for us because we never lived in a situation like this. It was first for us. We didn't know how we're gonna manage to survive and carry on with the strength in our community. And then you know quite a lot about the things that is happening in Brazil. So we had also to stop with the school delivery because we used to deliver to the schools as well. So we had to stop with the food delivery as well. We tried to promote it through the social media in the order, the previous government, but not in this government is not helping us at all. So we are in a very complicated situation right now. But at the same time, I think everyone is in the same boat. So how can we do a step forward? How can we make our community be stronger again without risking anyone? So in a way, we decided to have a conversation with the community, and then we would carry on with the job, but in a different way. We decided that the delivery will be done in a different way. So we organize with the producers and trying to impose the security measures as well. And we managed to provide masks to the community, not just for us, for the producers, but for the community in general. So our community made many face masks, and we also donate many face masks to the community in the settlement here. Not just for the elderly, but for the youngers as well, for the kids as well. So we started doing this process within our community. And with the time passing, we started producing extra. We didn't have other income apart of the CSA. So in this first instance, the only income we had was from CSA, and we had to maintain. So we decided with the community to everybody puts a bit of money in the community online. But we end up spreading the message, not just in the community, but to friends and relatives. If anyone could help with a little bit, would be helpful. So we managed to put together some money. And in this process, we managed to provide food for 45 families for 4 months every Tuesday. So every week we would deliver a basket with products, our products from our producers of a CSA, and also a liter of milk. So for 4 months we worked there. On Monday we would deliver in the community. On Tuesday we would deliver to the families that were going through hardship on this pandemic time. Many of them lost their jobs. Many of them were not allowed outside of the house. They had no other way of income. So this was an alternative of CSA with our help to provide to the community. And we done it before, a donation between us with many entities together, for elderly communities, or also retiring home, nursery, kindergartens. So we have now to remain. It was a way that we found to keep the production. So what did we decide? That we needed to carry on with this project. So we call CSA Sharing Health, and we talk with the community, and the community would pay for it, and we pay an extra quote so we could keep the family that was already part of this plan. So we managed for 4 months to provide to the community. So we kept our quotes and we added another quote for an extra family, like you adopted a family, let's say. And in this way, we managed to provide and feed people for 4 months, developing this activity. But here in our country, we've been suffering a lot. There is a lot of changes taking place around the world, but here in Brazil, we're suffering badly. We're having frozen fish. We had a very cold winter, so the crops were damaged as well. So it was a very delicate moment. Also, there was fires in our country. There was destruction all over the place in this Bolsonaro government, and intensificate even more the problems. And now we are kind of suffering the consequences of it. In the beginning of the year, We had an attack of lizards, kind of lizards, destroying and eating all the vegetables and everything that they saw and they were eating. So it was a plague. It was very difficult to deal with them. And then afterwards, we had a drought. For many years, we didn't have a drought like that. And when we thought that the rain was coming, it came a lot of water. So one thing after another. So first was the frost. The frost was very, very strong in our country, especially in the south. Many people never seen so much ice in their lives. So this was an aggravated point there. So we aggravate our production as well. We remain at the CSA. We still working. We still making donations, but we are unable to maintain the same production that we had before. In your aspects, in organizational skills with these families, unfortunately, this is happening. Nothing we can do about it. And unfortunately, with the government, apologies because the sound is terrible. We managed to create another project of health, which we done in Christmas time, and we managed to develop different activities to distribute food during Christmas. And we said to share health and happiness during Christmas. So we managed to collect some money. We managed to donate some baskets, some toys, boots, all sorts of bread, milk, and we managed to make a cake as well. So we had this party for those families. It was 35 baskets we managed to make, and we managed to provide for the Christmas. And we've been doing other activities as well, looking for different partnerships with different organizations as well. And we managed to collect some basic baskets with foods from the union, which the Cindy 15, which Angela Di Tinta also been helping us in Brazil. And those actually solidarity actions that also been helping us since June of this year. So we are trying to find alternatives and solutions for our community.
Thank you so much, Joyce. I'm going to have to ask you to conclude, please.
Oi, Arias, pode me ajudar?
Sim, acho que a gente estava pouquinho apertado com o tempo.
Yeah, we haven't got much extra time, so we have to be quick on it now. Sorry about that. So just to finish, we have the land, we have the soil, and we have our agriculture people. We are 60 co-producers that are part of our CSA, and we have around 10 producers. In a way, they've been participating and contributing to our community. And I'm at your full disposal if you need to clarify anything or if I can be of any help. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joyce. That was just so powerful, everything that you had to say to us, because I think all around the world, we know just how desperate the situation has been and continues to be in Brazil, because not only, as you say, have you had huge problems with the government, with Bolsonaro, but also with the climate. And the pandemic has hit Brazil just so hard. What I really retain from everything you've said is this incredibly strong link that you have realized between people's health and healthy food. And I think that this aspect of nutrition is something that many of us, especially Isa, have been working on. You have also worked so much on the right to food and food as part of the commons, because I think what you have done by donating the food to the people who have lost their jobs, who have no means of paying, and how the community has provided you with the means to live and to continue farming is just so, so powerful. I want to move on to our last speaker because we're moving into the last half hour. So I'm going to give the floor to Laurence Lewalle, who is from Belgium, from the Belgian Gazap, which is one of our member networks, and then leave maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes at the end to go back to each one of you with your key takeaways from what you've heard the other people saying. So, Laurence, la parole est à toi. Merci beaucoup.
Bonjour à tous.
Hello, everyone. It's amazing to listen to your testimonials and to see how much we have in common in how we reacted to the COVID crisis. In our case, we created groups of buyers and we had 4,000 consumers within our communities. The first thing that we had to face in Belgium was the situation of the market, the markets, the food markets. We worked so that we tried to compensate the losses. And this was done through three types of reactions. In order to try to support the farmers who were in difficulty. For example, I give you the example of one who had a market preview on Wednesday, and Tuesday afternoon he received the information that he had to shut down, that he couldn't go. And this happened really quickly. The delay of reaction was between 1 or 2 days. The resilience of our systems, we were able to react with solidarity. For example, thanks to David and Jonathan, who told us that they tried to react the quickest possible. And also what we noticed with the shutting down with the lockdown, we noticed that the schools, there was an absence of volunteers in the fields. And so we were able to put in place a mechanism of solidarity so that, for example, to be able to go ourselves to the field to work, to do the necessary work. And also, this was in one farm, we were able to build a system so that we communicate quickly with our consumers and compile the baskets. The Gazap network was also called up. We cannot say that we were supported by the authorities during the COVID crisis. However, they called us they called us and asked if it was possible to sell part of our production. We tried to answer the best we could. For example, we included mushrooms in our baskets. We also accelerated the building up of a IT tool in order to simplify the orders, all the order we were receiving. So this is really in general to tell you about what we put in place within GAZAP network during the COVID crisis. And then we have an analysis that at the end we had a positive balance regarding the local agriculture. We can say that the farmers do not have a better situation compared to the pre-COVID situation. Some just retracted from the market, and so were able to avoid whether big losses or big gains. And also, we know that the future is unknown. There is a big uncertainty. So when we are asked to commit to 1 year of production, and we said that during such a crisis, there is no alternative to supermarkets, but there is an alternative to the agro-food systems. So this is a summary, a global summary. And then what we observe in terms of time and work conditions, we faced situations that required more time from the farmers. For example, in Belgium, the laws were changed each 2-3 weeks in terms of what was possible to do and what was not possible. And so all this required more work time. And also we had a loss of workers, and also wages were lowered. You know, when the work time skyrocketed, at the end, salaries, wages are lowered. Another element also at the worst time of the crisis, there was a very reduced workforce. And sometimes some producers work with
alguns produtores trabalharam vendendo, então isso tomava muito tempo.
Les interprètes ont un peu de mal. Je sais que tu es passionnée, tu parles naturellement très vite, mais est-ce que tu peux ralentir?
Bien sûr.
Excuse-moi d'avoir interrompu.
Donc, qu'est-ce que je disais? Oui, je disais qu'en fait, les producteurs m'ont signalé que si la crise
So
avait eu
the
lieu
producers told me that if the crisis happened in August, in July, August, it would have been in the moment in which they have the most benefits. But because it happened in March, April, they were able to liquidate their products, but this didn't mean that they had more
je veux dire, pour affiner un peu les analyses de nouveau de ces booms du circuit court dont on a entendu parler.
that they had more benefits.
En termes économiques pour les producteurs que ça.
So it wasn't that much of an economic boom for the producer. So I'll try to summarize, I'll try to finish and conclude. I'm sorry, the sound is off now.
Laurence seems to have frozen. Laurence, you need to leave and come back. So in the meanwhile, while Laurence is coming back,
nous allons revenir aux autres intervenants, Shian, Isa, Jessica, et aussi à Joyce. Ah, vous êtes revenu, super.
très bien, encore une minute ou deux, Laurence, pour conclure, parce qu'on a perdu la conclusion.
En fait, j'entends rien. C'est à moi de parler ou pas du tout, Judith?
Oui, oui, on a perdu ta
j'entends pas.
conclusion, donc je te redonne 2-3 minutes, mais pas plus. Merci.
Est-ce que vous m'entendez? Je peux parler? Ok, désolée, je ne sais pas ce qui s'est passé. Donc, pardon pour ça. Je disais juste que pour le réseau des gazas, l'enjeu avait été en fait, il y a énormément de gens qui se sont mis sur liste d'attente pour être dans les gazap et donc de convertir ces gens et de les faire passer de liste d'attente à membres effectifs d'un gazap. Ça nous a demandé beaucoup de travail et en fait, ça continue maintenant parce qu'on essaie de surfer un peu sur le succès des circuits courts pendant la période de Covid. Et pour les producteurs, l'enjeu aussi, c'est d'organiser des rencontres individuelles avec eux parce qu'on a eu énormément de producteurs qui sont venus vers le réseau en disant « Tiens, est-ce que vous auriez de la place pour qu'on rejoigne le réseau ?» parce qu'ils avaient entendu justement parler de ces solidarités que je vous ai expliquées, des gens qui venaient sur les champs, de l'adaptabilité des mangeurs par rapport à la composition de leur panier, la fréquence de leur panier, etc. Et du coup, c'est quelque chose qui est très attrayant pour les producteurs, donc qui s'adresse beaucoup à nous. Et voilà, on essaie de suivre pour pouvoir voir lesquels peuvent nous rejoindre, sachant que, comme je vous le disais au début, on a très peu de moyens financiers, on est très peu soutenu par les pouvoirs publics et que du coup, c'est un réel enjeu pour nous de dégager du temps pour aller les voir. Et aussi pour les personnes qui se sont engagées dans un gazap en se disant « Ok, je reste pendant une saison », en fait, l'enjeu, c'est aussi de discuter avec ces personnes-là pour qu'elles continuent, qu'elles continuent leur engagement. Je parle trop vite, en fait. Je vois
Laurence,
des
tu parles trop vite et je vais être obligée de te demander de finir. I think it's time to conclude because we have less than 15 minutes left. I don't know if Joyce can come back because...
Il me reste seulement 15 minutes. Je ne sais pas si Joyce peut revenir. Est-ce que Joyce peut revenir avec les éléments qu'elle a trouvés, les éléments les plus importants qu'elle a trouvés? Joyce, est-ce que vous êtes là? Est-ce qu'on a perdu Joyce? Ariel? Nous essayons de la contacter. Sinon, peut-être que je peux demander aux autres intervenantes, Jessica, Isa et Cheyenne, quelles sont vos trouvailles les plus significatives en ce qui concerne les interventions d'aujourd'hui? Vous êtes libre de parler dans l'ordre que vous préférez. Je vais commencer. Je pense que le plus significatif, chaque situation a eu ses particularités, mais je pense qu'avant, ce que disait Jessica sur l'improvisation, mais il y a une improvisation sur des piliers forts, non sur des sables mouvants. Donc, nous sommes en train de construire, nous sommes en train de voir où construire notre maison, où positionner les chambres, mais les fondations n'ont pas été déplacées. Donc, la forme de fonctionner est toujours en perpétuelle adaptation et grâce aux connexions, aux articulations, nous avons pu refaire cette réorganisation. En ce qui concerne les personnes, par rapport aux personnes, notre réseau était beaucoup plus sûr qu'un supermarché, mais il fallait qu'il nous trouve d'abord. Et je pense que finalement, le plus important, c'est que le soutien mutuel a fonctionné. Et c'est ce qui nous a fait résilients. Mais c'est vrai qu'on a eu aussi un résultat économique et nous avons pu aider ceux qui en avaient le plus besoin. Nous avons été capables d'être imaginatifs. J'aimerais aussi ajouter un point qui était très curieux, c'est qu'il y a eu des groupes spontanés de soutien dans les villes pour aider les habitants entre eux. Et ils s'écrivaient des notes, des billets. Ils les postaient devant les portes de leurs voisins en proposant de les aider. Il y en a beaucoup qui n'ont pas fonctionné parce qu'ils ne se connaissaient pas, alors qu'ils vivaient dans le même immeuble et beaucoup de personnes âgées n'avaient pas confiance en qui ils ne connaissaient pas. Et beaucoup de groupes ont cherché les réseaux CSA parce qu'ils avaient confiance en eux. Donc, l'articulation a fonctionné à partir de plusieurs points de vue. Merci beaucoup. Merci, Issa. Qu'est-ce qui était le plus important pour toi? Qu'est-ce que tu as écouté qui t'a le plus inspiré?
Merci. Je pense que le plus important, à mon avis, dans cette réunion, c'est ce que j'ai écouté dire à la dame du Brésil quand elle a parlé des défis auxquels il faisait face durant la pandémie. dans une période en Chine. Bon, maintenant, en Chine, on a des meilleures conditions, mais quand les gens se trouvent, je pense que quand les gens se trouvent dans une situation aussi stressante, ils peuvent avoir des réactions très variées. Je ne pense pas que quand les gens ne savaient pas si cette épidémie allait finir ou pas, on a tous pensé que c'était allait finir très vite au début. Au début, l'année dernière, on pensait que ça allait finir très vite. Mais je pense que maintenant, depuis tout ce qu'ont raconté chacun des orateurs, je vois que les gens commencent tous à repenser aux relations entre la nourriture et les gens. Donc, c'est une opportunité pour nous de prendre ce sujet en main et de le rendre public, de le faire savoir. Certaines des communautés, une ou deux personnes avaient le Covid, toute la communauté était confinée. Pas seulement les fermes bio, mais toutes. Je pense que les gens sont plus réceptifs maintenant. C'est un bon moment pour appeler les gens en général, tout le monde, pour les aider à approfondir dans cette pensée qui est née sur la relation entre la nature, la santé, les communautés, au milieu de tous les problèmes que nous avons eus. À Beijing, par exemple, il y a eu un moment, pendant une semaine, il a plu.
Thank you, Xian. I think that linking people more closely than ever to the farms and financial support and reconnecting with our health.
Yeah.
And the climate change aspect is very important because I think the kind of agriculture we practice with agroecology heals the earth. So I think those are important. I don't know if Joyce can give her just one or two things very quickly that have marked her most.
Joyce, você está nos ouvindo agora?
I can give her two minutes
certo.
maximum.
A Judith está aqui pedindo para você falar suas palavras finais, 2 minutinhos, para a gente fazer esse encerramento aqui sobre a sua fala, sua experiência.
I'm not asking Joyce to give the closing remarks. I want her, what she found most important in this seminar, just in one sentence, so I can ask the other speakers too.
Joyce, ela está pedindo para você dizer o que você achou sobre as outras falas. Eu não tenho certeza se você conseguiu ouvir tudo interpretado.
Na verdade, eu não sei o que aconteceu aqui, mas eu não ouvi nada. Assim, eu ouvi, mas eu não entendi porque eu não consegui ligar aqui a tradução.
Okay, she's telling that she had some problems with interpretation.
Because I understand you cannot get interpretation on a mobile phone. So thank you, Joyce, and I will move to Jessica.
Thank you. I think just a few things.
Really quickly.
Quickly. One, if you can share this with Joyce, one of our founders said, you know, when she created Mill City Grows, it was inspired by the landless workers movement. And it was really amazing to hear from Joyce today. I think that some of the, tying food to all the other pieces of people's lives, and the way she was talking about doing that and providing all these different services was really made a lot of sense in terms of how I think about this work. So that was amazing to hear. I think what Xian just also said about, thinking about the environment in the work that we do. We suffered from too much rain here in Massachusetts, but there are other areas of our country that were on fire for months, this year. And so while we used food to be more resilient through this pandemic, we know that there are other obstacles that we will face. And so we want to continue doing this work and growing it so that our communities can be more resilient no matter what happens in the future.
Thank you, Jessica. Laurence, je reviens vers toi. Je sais que j'étais un peu abrupte la manière que ça s'est terminé tout à l'heure. Est-ce que tu es là, Laurence?
Je suis là. Mais j'ai pas entendu ta question, Judith, parce que ça allait pas assez fort, mais je suis là.
Est-ce que tu peux juste dire ce qui pour toi t'a le plus marqué dans les témoignages aujourd'hui?
En fait, j'ai été assez impressionnée, et aussi parce que moi, je ne connaissais pas ce qui était mis en place en Chine, et du coup, ce que Xian a exposé, je trouvais ça très, très intéressant de voir qu'en fait, dans des cultures si différentes et dans des contrées si différentes, on avait des manières de réagir qui peuvent être assez similaires en termes de soutien à l'agriculture paysanne. Et j'ai été très marquée par les grandes difficultés rencontrées au Brésil, et alors aussi au Massachusetts, j'y arriverai, aux États-Unis. la question en fait de l'accessibilité aussi et de l'inclusion, je trouvais ça inspirant, parce que c'est des questions auxquelles on est aussi confrontés et qu'on a, nous, en Belgique, du mal à aborder à cause de notre modèle et de notre financement. Mais je trouve ça inspirant de voir comment d'autres le font. Et voilà, je veux dire, si je devais retenir des points, ce serait ceux-là.
Thank you very, very much. To try to conclude in 1 or 2 minutes, and please, interpreters and team, if we can have literally 2 or 3 extra minutes here. I think the pandemic and the climate change and the existing industrial food system are the things that really need to be focused on. But we have shown all the answers in this particular seminar. We have shown how we can respond by meeting people's food needs in an affordable way. And Xian answered that question because somebody mentioned how expensive organic food is, and Xian said it costs half that price in a CSA. So it is not unaffordable. Jessica showed how it can be made affordable to people in very difficult circumstances in large cities in terms of social inclusion. And Joyce actually took it one step further by taking food as part of the commons. So we really have looked at people's health, nutrition, social solidarity economy, the importance of policy to support producers and farm workers in a different way because they are growing our food, and people have been working more and getting paid less. Also, somehow to manage to regulate the amount of crops we're growing to feed people, because it is an issue. We cannot grow more crops overnight, and people need to become aware of their responsibilities when they commit. I think there's also something underlying, which was one of our policy asks in our report, which is a minimum food guarantee for everybody, a social security safety net for food to make sure that people are not hungry. And again, Xian very rightly said that people react differently when their bellies are full and when they are hungry. And I think that, to me, is really the underlying issue. Joyce also underlined it when she said when people lost their jobs, they couldn't pay for the food. So we do need states or local governments to step up to ensure that people have access to safe, healthy, nutritious food under all circumstances, and that food is a human right, as is nutrition. So I think that those are the things that Isa has been working on policy in Rome very deeply. I have also been working on it in the COVID-19 task team, which is ongoing in the civil society and indigenous peoples mechanism. And these are things that we will be able to take forward in our policy asks. So thank you, all 5 of you, so much for your huge contribution, particularly you, Xian, because between feeding the baby and it must be about 4 o'clock in the morning for you now. So you've made a huge contribution, so thank you. And thank you to everybody else, to Joyce, who has been fighting with technology and electricity and everything, and to all of our interpreters for supporting us. It's been a privilege to be part of this conversation. Thank you. And we really couldn't manage without our interpreters. It's so good to have you here and to have your expertise and time support us. Thank you.